In this video, we'll have a look at the newly released tank PvE missions, testing right now in War Thunder. Cue the cinematic. Hello you six beasts and welcome back to War Thunder. Yesterday brought the introduction of a new game mode test available to everyone in the Events tab. From the 22nd to the 24th of March, you can participate in testing of a new tank PvE mode with 3 different settings. Each of these missions is currently being tested out in arcade mode with no respawns, and a preset tank for your entire squad. You cannot take your own vehicle choice, I'm afraid. All missions loosely follow historical events and share the same basic layout. So let's go one by one. The first mission is on the Eastern Front in 1941 on the Poland map. This coincides with the start of real-life Operation Barbarossa, the German attempt to invade Russia during World War II, which started on the 22nd of July 1941. Representative of the early stages of the war, you and a squad of 3 more players spawn in fully upgraded Panzer IIIF models, armed with 35mm cannons with a choice of APHE and APCR shells. For this mission I highly recommend bringing mostly APHE with a few APCR shots in reserve for one of the tougher enemy tanks you might face. Rather confusingly, you spawn on the eastern end of the map and move west towards the outskirts of the town. Here you have to clear the area of the defending 45mm anti-tank gun emplacements and the defending T-28 tanks. The T-28s aren't a big challenge as they don't move around and you can deal with them fairly quickly while shooting center mass with APHE. The AT guns are your most dangerous enemy throughout most of this mission and can easily cripple you or even one-shot you, so your best bet is to move from cover to avoid getting shot by more than one at a time. Since the AT guns are fairly small, it is rather easy to miss a hidden one, but they also have a fairly limited traverse arc, which you can actually exploit by simply flanking behind them and using your coaxial machine gun against the crew operating them. Once you successfully capture the outskirts, you move on towards the center of town. Be careful here as enemy units can spawn right in your line of sight and they start shooting you immediately. You'll find a few more AT guns as well as T-26s and some early T-34s attempting a counterattack. The T-26s are easy enough to deal with, just be careful to properly clear the immediate area before advancing or you might find yourself surrounded like I have. The T-34 can be quite an issue for your rather weak 50mm gun. Ideally, you want to avoid the main road and flank around their sides at close range. But in an emergency, you can load APCR and try your luck against the third front or third ring. If you successfully clear the area, you get a few seconds to mount some defensive position against an incoming swarm of counterattacking BT-7s. You might be tempted to move out west to catch them out in the open, but it is better to stay within the city and use cover to your advantage. The BT-7s are rapid and hard to hit, and since they are manned by AI, their guns easily one-shot you at full speed from across the map. I personally rate this mission as medium tier difficulty. The enemies aren't really too hard to deal with, but you are driving a rather weak tank yourself as well. In all 3 of these missions, it is crucial to play conservatively, as there are no respawns and the success of the final wave depends heavily on how many teammates are left alive by the end of it. On your first playthrough, you are most likely going to get absolutely dunked on by a hidden AT gun, but after a few tries you start to get a feeling for where they are. The next mission is once again on the Eastern Front, this time centered around the Battle of Kursk, which started on the 5th of July in 1943. This time you play as a squad of Soviet T-34 57s, mounting a counteroffensive on German positions. I highly recommend taking the initial APHE shell with more explosive filler, as you won't really face anything you can't easily penetrate, and the extra damage really is crucial for a high chance to one-shot the later panzers before they get a chance to fire back. Your attack begins from the northwestern outskirts. You have to make your way towards the town and clear out the defending Panzer IV F1s and 75mm Panzerabwehrkanone 40 anti-tank positions. The Panzers are fairly easy to deal with as they have little armor, are standing perfectly still, and only have the short 75mm guns. But the Pak 40s can easily mess up your day if you expose yourself too much. Use the cover of the railway banks as best as possible and only expose yourself to a few guns at a time. The Pak 40s have a rather large shield protecting the crew from MG fire, but you can hull break them with your 57mm APHE. After you clear out the initial defenders, the mission moves further south into the center of town, where you will face more Pak 40s as well as Panzer IV G models, and even a few Tigers. Here is where you have to be really careful, as everything you face has very powerful guns. I suggest prioritizing the Panzers and the AT guns, as the Tigers are moving around rather slowly and can be easily flanked. It is important that you have at least 2 people left alive on your team after this, as you will now move on to the final phase. Your last objective is to hold the town you just captured against a swarm of counterattacking Panzer IV J. I recommend taking cover behind some of the eastern buildings and setting up so that you can catch them out in the open. The Russian 57mm gun is really excellent at medium ranges thanks to its velocity. Out of the 3, this mission is probably the easiest to complete successfully. The T-34-57 is an excellent tank with a great gun. Just make sure you use cover effectively. Those Pak 40s can easily take you out of the game if you're not careful. The third and final mission is by far the hardest one to complete. This one takes place during the 1973 Yom Kippur War between Egypt and Israel. You and your squad take control of M48A1s and have to face superior enemy tanks in vastly superior numbers. The M48 has quite an array of available munitions for its 90mm gun. I recommend taking mostly Heat FS with a few HESH shells for the ability to one-shot the initial tanks for the cupola, and even fewer APHE shells for side shots. Your main issue in this mission is going to be staying alive in the first place, added on by the real possibility of running out of ammo before you kill all enemies. Your mission starts in the southern end of the Sinai. You move east towards a small town defended by 73mm recoilless rifles and a few stationary T-54s. The recoilless rifles are going to be your biggest issue here, but they also have absolutely no shielding for the crew whatsoever. If you have your keybind set up, I highly recommend not exposing your tank at all and instead just using your top-mounted 50 cal to deal with the AT guns before dealing out HESH to the cupola of the T-54s. If you do this correctly, you will probably not take a single hit in this initial phase. After clearing out the town, you move north towards the main town area. You might be tempted to climb up the eastern plateau to get the high ground, but there is a very high chance you're just going to get cross-met by T-62, firing darts at you whilst you're climbing exposed. This second phase is where most of your team is very likely to die, as you have to cross open areas whilst getting shot by literally aimbotting T-55As and T-62s, which have absolutely no trouble with going through your armor. You'll want to move from cover to cover and be extremely careful. And don't forget to move back into full cover in between reloads. No, seriously. The town has a few hidden anti-tank positions, as well as the earlier mentioned tanks. It is a large area to cover and it's easy to miss a tank or two hidden between some buildings, so make sure to move slowly and be thorough. If you manage to survive and find every enemy, you move on to the final painful phase. You have 60 seconds to set up defensive positions before a horde of T-62 move in from the northwestern desert to capture a small town up north. If you are the only one left alive, you simply won't have enough ammo to deal with this wave. Whilst you can rearm on the capture zone itself, you are just going to get shot in the face if you try. In fact, in this final phase, you want to avoid the capture zone altogether and instead set up defensive positions on either the eastern plateau or the western rocks. The T-62s have APF-SDS, stabilizers and literal aimbots, so it is incredibly important to not let them spot you in the first place. Stay in full cover at all times, only poking up for a few seconds to take a shot. Good luck! All 3 missions are run in arcade mode and give no significant rewards for participating. As it stands, it's purely a testing environment for what may become an established new game mode in the future, or perhaps even a replacement for the sorely underdeveloped Ground Assault mode we currently have in the game. You can still take part in these tests until tomorrow, the 24th of March. Simply open the Events tab. The developers are very interested in feedback, so once you have played a few rounds, feel free to say what you think of the tests in the comments down below. In the meantime, I'm setting myself a very optimistic goal of reaching 100,000 subscribers before this channel dies off completely. And I would really appreciate if you can help with that by subscribing down below and either liking the video if you enjoyed it or disliking and telling me why you didn't enjoy it in the comments. As a bonus, if you're interested in buying anything on the War Thunder store, you can get yourself a 3% discount, and my channel icon is a free decal in the game from my affiliate link in the description. Don't tell anyone. I shall see you again in the next video. My name is MikeGoesBoom, and thank you for watching.